Welcome to CityCast Denver. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. So today we're talking about the ongoing drought and who still needs to cut down on their water usage. And we're looking at the new plans released on the future of COCO, aka the Front Range Passenger Rail. We'll also hear from our listeners on why there are so many Speedos at Waterworld and more. Founder and editor of The Lever, David Sirota. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
The Speedo question. I can't wait.
We are getting to that at the end, and it is very good. So I shout out to our listeners for responding. We have a very active listenership, and we love you for it. Okay, really quick, before we get into it, tonight, join us for the Colfax Indie Bash from 6 to 9 p.m. We're going to be hanging out in the parking lot behind Pete's Satire Lounge, where we're recording a live podcast. The CityCast Denver crew is going head-to-head with our reporter friends at Denverite, and we're all being challenged by Westword's editor emeritus, Patty Calhoun, who's come up with a bunch of questions to test our Colfax knowledge in a live quiz show. The celebration is free, of course, but you must RSVP, and there is still time, so jump on that today. We would love to see you tonight. There's a link in the show notes with more information, and I hope we'll see you there. Okay. First, we're saving Speedos for the end. We're going to talk about the drought. And interestingly, you spoke with Attorney General Phil Weiser recently, who is now the Democratic candidate for governor come November, and you talked to him about water. And Weiser told you that he was preparing to make some really unpopular decisions when it comes to water. We're seeing Denverites fail to meet our conservation targets. What kind of decisions do you think that Weiser is talking about?
Well, I mean, he didn't say exactly what decisions he's going to make. He basically said, look, for the last 20, 30 years, probably even longer, state leaders have kicked the can down the road on the water question, and that that's the easiest political thing to do. But that he was saying he wants to finally start having the conversation that we need to have when it comes to the physical world, right? I mean, it's easy to kick the can and move a number here or there on a spreadsheet, but clearly the stuff that's on the spreadsheet is now becoming a like real physical reality in the physical world when it comes to the fact that we are living in a high desert and the desertification.
As we have been, yes.
Yes, right. And it's getting more desert-like. I mean, I think I read one way to describe it is that Denver is becoming now more like Albuquerque used to be. And Albuquerque is becoming more like Phoenix was, and Phoenix is becoming more like the surface of the sun. It's not great for Phoenix, not so great for Albuquerque. It's a little better for us, but still we got our problems when it comes to water. And so I think what he was really talking about is starting a statewide conversation about, all right, look, what do we need to do to have enough water to support and sustain the level of population that we have here, which, by the way, no pun intended, has downstream effects on people who live downstream of the Colorado River and how much water they have. Because as bad as it is here for us in this drought, the further you go downstream, the worse it is in terms of a lack of water.
Yeah, I was talking to a grass seed farmer who grew up here in Colorado in the San Luis Valley. And he talked about where that was something he knew from a young age because he grew up on a farm, was how far downstream they were. And now this is more of a reality we're not farming. I mean, people are farming in our state, but it's hitting everybody. And I think it is apt to think about Phoenix and Albuquerque as our future. And I think I mentioned this last week, but my old roommate was in town from Phoenix, and he was like, I'm actually staying another day in Denver because, believe it or not, it's still cooler here than it is in Phoenix, and I don't want to go back to that. But we're inching closer and closer to that. So do you think, so when we're talking about this tangible reality, not just legislation, do you think Weiser is wants to crack down on our water usage as just people in the cities? Are we talking about the government, its Parks and Recs department, stuff like that? What do you think he was getting at?
I think he's getting at everything from lawns and how we use land and whether land needs to be irrigated or not, both in our cities, to also what kind of crops will this ecosystem sustain. I mean, and he mentioned, like, look, these are difficult conversations because, look, people like their lawns, right?
Sure.
People like their golf courses, as another example. People have been growing the same kinds of crops on various areas of farmland for generations. So even beginning a conversation, you can just let your imagination run wild about how politicized this could become in very short order, where it all of a sudden becomes the state, the government leaders are having a conversation about our so-called way of life, right? This does get to that whole abstract but very cherished idea of our way of life. And I think if we're gonna, I think the other side of the argument is, if we're gonna preserve life at all here in Colorado, we need to actually ask whether the water table and the amount of water that we have in this state can preserve the way of life that we have had in the past. And I think if you're honest about the science, I think at minimum, you got to admit, we probably have to make at least some changes. Now, how serious and structural those changes are, that's the conversation. But I just think about, like, can you imagine telling people, and look, Denver Water is telling people this, and Aurora Water is telling people this, like,
yes,
hey, we really don't want you to water your lawn more than once, twice a week, right? And like, that's sort of like those institutions are being relatively gentle about that, like saying, hey, we'd really like you to do this, but it can get a lot more forceful. And I think the question that where the rubber is going to hit the road here is, how forceful do these entities have to be?
Yeah, and like Denver Water has said that they are, they've been sending what they call educational letters to over 3,000 customers so far in response to complaints and notifications from, I'm guessing, other neighbors ratting out their neighbors for watering their lawns. But I want to step back for a minute because I'm thinking about this bigger picture too, is when we're talking about agriculture, and ag here is big, like, we're also talking about, how do we localize food systems? Like, look at this situation we're dealing with this this foodborne outbreak, and so much conversations about, well, then let's shop local at our farmers markets. But like, how can they afford to do what they're doing, and how can we even create those systems that are sustainable if we don't have access to water? Also, we could talk data centers. I mean, there's just so much that water plays into, and I always have wondered, like, how effective is it for Denver Water just to tell me not to water my lawn? Like, yes, we don't have a lawn, actually. We have native grasses, and they're pretty much all dead. We've been watering our trees, and that's about it. But like, is it really, yes, is it going to make a dent? But are these bigger things that we need to address that maybe the governor could address when it comes to bigger users of water than just the average consumer?
Yeah, I mean, look, the question about how Denver Water or Aurora Water hits its targets without currently using the carrot. Hey, we'd like you to do this. Like, hey, here's an educational letter that maybe you don't know.
I've gotten so many of those. Yeah,
right. Like, that's different than the stick of, like, you're going to pay a fine, or you're going to pay, after a certain amount of water usage, you're going to pay a cost prohibitive a higher rate for water usage. Like, these things become very politically divisive very quickly. And I would say, I'm not sure there's another way around this. Now, I would also say this. I think there are different carrots that still can be used. As an example, our home here, we have stopped watering our lawn.
I was going to ask you.
I'm
sure you have
lawn.
lawn.
Our lawn looks like a desert now. It quickly desertified.
So does ours.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like I'm a great martyr or anything. It's because we have wanted to do some xeriscaping for a long time, and finally I was like, I can't bring myself to water amid this drought. It just feels like wrong.
Even if you stick to the schedule, or
if you stick to the schedule, it just feels wrong. And so, and I bring this up in saying, like, there aren't, as far as I know, and maybe listeners can tell me I'm wrong, but there aren't any carrots available to like make it slightly easier for homeowners or whoever else to zero escape our situation. Now, I'm not like pleading poverty here. I'm not like a martyr. I'm not like a, like
landscaping costs money.
But yeah, presumably the neighborhood doesn't want my lawn to look like just a total like weed
I think
desert.
about this so much, though. This is the aesthetic issue.
Right.
And
like,
what is the reality of that aesthetic issue? Is it just bothers us?
Yeah, it looks like you don't care about your house. It's like the sort of like broken windows theory of, like the neighborhood's going to crap, like I don't really buy into that, but like clearly like so my point is like, it would be great if there was a way for the city, the county, the water district, the state to like incentivize people to zero escape in ways that don't make zero escaping so incredibly cost prohibitive. I mean, zero escaping is costly, to be clear, like it's expensive.
Sure.
But I feel like there's like a political consensus to get like the landscapers, like that whole industry with like the real estate, the realtors, the real estate industry and homeowners around like the stuff we do, for instance, for like high efficiency furnaces, right? The city did, subsidies for high efficiency furnaces, subsidies for e-bikes. And I just want to add, like, it would be really great if like the federal government helped incentivize that. And the federal government did with high efficiency energy stuff, but like that's the way to really, I think, get people to transition.
Yeah. And I do want to say, I think there are some programs where they will pay you to replace your grass with something. I don't know if it's through Denver Water, but Denver Water does do this program that you can. Well, they're connected to this program called Garden in a Box. And we've done it. That's how we actually replaced half of our square footage with Colorado native grasses and plants, pollinator plants, low water plants. It's been a process. We've been doing it for 5 years. I say we, I mean, my husband does all of this, but it is much lower cost. It's a botanists pick out these plants for specific things, particularly our environment. So there's ways, but I can see where it's not necessarily incentivized enough to get people to make that change.
And again, like, I do ultimately think there's an argument that maybe when it comes to zero escaping or using less water, maybe it really is true that as divisive as it ends up being, that the price of the water that the residents are using should substantially increase after a certain kind of allotted normal amount. Like that seems to me, because then what you're doing is you're saying, listen, if you zero escape, the money that you're saving is you're not going to go into that higher price that actually is cost prohibitive, right? The savings is like you're avoiding getting hit with the bill that you're currently getting hit with.
I've wondered that too, because I think less about the outdoor usage and more about the indoor usage. Are we letting the water run too long? Are we washing our dishes when we should just be putting them in the dishwasher because they found that actually uses less water? But this is so much to think about. We would love to hear your thoughts. Are you conserving water? What are your concerns? Are you the person that's ratting on your neighbors? What do you think we could do? What do you think about David's idea of this higher price for more usage? Give us a call, 720-500-5418. Give us a call on the What's Up with Water hotline. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are talking about COCO, the new Colorado Connector Front Range passenger rail. Okay, we're back. Got to talk about the Colorado Connector, aka COCO. I don't know if I will ever call it that. That's what it has been nicknamed. But this November, voters living in the Front Range Passenger Rail District, aka a corridor stretching from Fort Collins to Pueblo, could be voting on a 1/3 cent sales tax hike to fund this said district, and the train promising to connect us, well, across the Front Range. If it is passed, it's set to hopefully raise around $300 million a year to fund this whole thing. David, we talked about transit last time you were on. What are your thoughts on this grand idea of connecting the Front Range through rail?
So I'm of two minds on this. my first mind is like, yes, there should be some way to get on a train and move to and from the largest population centers in Colorado, which are in the Front Range. Like that makes total sense. I think my concern is, wait a minute, if there's not robust, really efficient, really, really good public transit or other forms of transit in the destination locations, then you take the big train from one place to another. You get off the big train and you're like, how do I move around this city, right? So if you get on the train in Fort Collins and you get off the train in Colorado Springs, like, that's great. You didn't take your car. That's amazing. You got to like chill out and hang out and not be, not add to traffic, not add to pollution. But then you get out in Colorado Springs, you're like, how do I move around Colorado Springs? My point is, yes, there's public transit in Colorado Springs and the like, but if it's not really, really robust, I'm wondering why somebody would take the train from Fort Collins to Colorado Springs, knowing that once they get off in Colorado Springs, it's not that easy to move around. Now, are we going to build sort of infrastructure, whether it's public transit or those short-term rental cars, as an example, where you like rent it for a few hours, or
or just a circulator bus, like a couple of those.
Exactly. I think if this project, if COCO really becomes what it is envisioned to become, I think then it's really a challenge for all the places where the stops are to say, okay, how do we make it so enticing and so easy for people once they get off the train so that they will originally be willing to get on the train?
Yeah, because if that doesn't exist, or it's like just limited, so you take this amazing train, you get to Denver, and then you take a bunch of Ubers, like that's not going to save you much money, even if you weren't renting a car for that. It's crazy. But I was thinking about this a lot because we were talking about RTD's numbers. Like, they just announced potential cuts last week to cover the $250 million shortfall they have. And numbers reported back in February showed RTD ridership was down 40%. These cuts, too, that they've recommended, by the way, include our existing light rail and bus lines, eliminating some of them altogether, limiting service, which I think we know if you limit service, people are less likely to use it because it's not as consistent. This is also a common concern for folks. Is the bus even going to come? So you're right. Like, I kind of worry, like, this is of course I want this. I would have loved this as a teenager, to ride a train to Boulder to see a show at the Fox and come home, instead of having to convince my dad or like my aunt or uncle to take me to the Fox Theater to see a band and or coordinate with my friends' parents. Like, that's actually a pretty normal situation here, I think, in Denver. But I mean, I lived in New York City. I saw kids on the subway all the time. Like, I see the concern is like, okay, say we pass this tax, we pay all this money, and then is it worth it for those of us? And I should say, to be fair, in the draft plan that was put out this week, they only account for commuters to be about 11% of that usage. So the folks that I'm thinking, I have a friend whose husband rides his bike to Union Station, takes a bus from there to Boulder to go to work, comes back, rides his bike home. He would be a perfect candidate for this. But I don't know how many of him there are out there, and it sounds like they're not counting on a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Sal Pace, who's the former state legislator, who's sort of a spokesperson for this initiative and this project, he said, we don't envision this mostly as a commuter line. And I appreciate the honesty. I think that's it's right to be honest about that. But then the question becomes, okay, well, if it's not a commuter line, then how many potential customers are there really for people who are going to regularly go from, again, Boulder or Fort Collins down to Denver? Now, maybe Denver's the right example for the argument that it doesn't need to be a commuter line, in the sense that, there are a lot of amenities in Denver. You could imagine people wanting to come down
full
for the
schedule.
Right,
Yes,
totally, right.
We have music venues everywhere. Like, yeah,
Maybe
Stuff
that
to do.
works. I think then the other question then is so is the theory really that lots of people are going to use this line to come to Denver? Like I almost can see that theory in the sense of Denver has some things that a lot of the other cities may not have as much of. That kind of makes sense to me. And yes, if you're living downtown and you want to go up to Boulder, once you get off the train in Boulder, I mean Boulder's a fairly walkable place. But I think the question is like a lot of these places, the selling point of a lot of these places are like, it's not just what's in Boulder, but what's like 3 miles away or 5 miles away outside of Boulder, like the nature. Same thing with Fort Collins or Rocky Mountain National Park, Colorado Springs, Garden of the Gods. Right. Totally.
Or you want to go to Manitou for, to go to the arcade or, yeah, you're right. And that is all very, at this point, car centric.
Yes. And so I think the key to this, what would be really cool to see is that if this tax happens and if this project moves forward, those communities being like, okay, the selling point is take the train to Colorado Springs and we have a very regular shuttle bus to Garden of the Gods, or a very or we've got the what are they called? The share cars or whatever, where you can just right at the station, you can pick up the cars and go, and it's not cost prohibitive. That would make sense to me. Like that I'm getting on the train for that.
Sure. And I do want to say, just to give people a little bit more, I'll put a link in the show notes. The draft plan is really interesting, especially for our transit folks, just to see what their thoughts are here. And again, shout out Michael Booth at Colorado Sun. Great reporting. Sal Pace, as you mentioned, the head of this district, said, regardless of whether the governing board of this project approves sending the tax to voters this year, and even if voters rejected the tax, limited service between Denver, Boulder, and Fort Collins could still be ready to go in as little as 3 years, which I am skeptical of. But he also says, what would that look like? Okay, 2029, there would be 3 round-trip trains a day, Denver to Fort Collins, and then a route heading to Boulder and Longmont. Full build-out of the project all the way to Pueblo would take a total of $2.7 billion and 5 years if the vote passes. So there's still a lot up in the air, and I do worry sometimes. I understand the slow nature of unfolding this in multiple phases, but like, are we going to start helping people? It's about building habits, but this doesn't seem to be built on necessarily habits if they don't expect folks who would be using it daily or weekly to be the majority of their ridership.
That's exactly right. It's not. I don't know what habits would be built by this, other than again. Okay, there's a lot of things happening in Denver. People from the other cities want to come to Denver. People want to go from Denver to Boulder without driving. Okay, that like makes sense. Like people want to go up for.
I would love that.
Right, like you could totally imagine that being a thing you do. Like if I want to go see a concert in Boulder, I'm no longer driving up. Now, again, I think there are attendant questions like, are you making parking at Union Station so people can park and ride? Are you making that cost prohibitive? Right? Like, because if that's more costly to do, then people are going to keep driving. We've talked about this before. Like, to get people to change their transit habits, you have to make it just as easy, if not easier, than being in their car, and arguably cheaper. Like, you should make it cheaper than being in their car.
And this is another concern, I would say. So Bustang is a popular Greyhound-style bus service, and that costs anywhere from $5 to $43 for adults, depending on how far you're going. And it goes all the way to Grand Junction, which is amazing. But it operates at a huge loss. Mm-hmm. Like, the tickets are affordable, it seems, but they're still not covering the cost of it. So I think that's the other issue is, can it sustain and be affordable and build the habits for folks? That's a hard equation, which I know they've thought deeply about, but I do have concerns about just the use.
I mean, the snow staying is one of the best kept secrets
we've talked about
Colorado.
That one. Go up to the and like that's a dream. I mean, I was even thinking about it when I was at Red Rocks last week, and I know they're running shuttles there, like, to try it out. I'm like, I was actually explaining to someone who lives in another city that was like, wait, so if I come to Denver for a show at Red Rocks, I have to drive there? And I was like, yeah.
Right, and it's a mess because like the parking, you got to park like 9 miles away, and look, I like the sort of the hike up to Red Rocks, but that's not for everybody. Like that, and that's certainly not easy. And again, it's the same thing for the ski season. And I know there's the winter park train, which I'm a big supporter of. There's the snow staying, which is you can get the snow staying at Union Station or at the Lakewood RTD Center, and granted, you're not avoiding traffic with the snow staying, but at least you're not driving. And I think it's amazing, and it's actually really well priced. But the thing that kind of blows my mind is, and I've told my kids, listen, if we're skiing on Saturday, I hate traffic so much that like I've told them they want to go skiing. I take them skiing, but I'm like, we're only going on the snow staying. I'm not driving. I don't want to drive. Traffic. And the crazy thing to me is it's not crowded. Like it's not oversold. And I'm wondering, I'm like, when you're sitting there in traffic, all the people are sitting on the highway waiting in traffic. And granted, I'm not getting there any quicker than they are because I'm in traffic too, but I'm not driving. Exactly.
Yeah, you're not stressing out. And yeah, I think I am cautiously optimistic because I love this idea in theory. I love being able to go see like friends and family in Longmont or my best friend lives in Pueblo. It would be awesome to be able to just take a train to see him. But I don't know. We'll see what the board says here. We'll know in August. We'll see if this tax goes to voters and how voters feel about it. But we would love to hear from you as always. I know we have so many transit experts in our audience. Maybe there's something David and I are missing here. We would love to hear from you. Give us a call, 720-500-5418. We're going to take one more quick break. And when we come back, we have a lovely voicemail from a listener about Speedos at Waterworld. Okay, we're going to do this real quick, but I just wanted to share this because I thought it was so fun. We talked about Waterworld a couple weeks ago, David, and you were like, why are there so many Speedos there on a Monday? Well, one of our listeners shared why he thinks that is. So we're going to hear a voicemail from Cameron.
Hey, Bree, this is Cameron. I'm in Baker neighborhood. I'm just following up with your conversation you had with David about Waterworld. I have a feeling that he went to Waterworld the Monday after Pride weekend. That is actually considered one of the official gay days. So you're going to see a lot more Speedos that day. I actually went there about a year ago and did the same thing. I felt a lot of judgment from everybody around us for wearing a Speedo and kind of don't know why there's that concern. And I don't know, maybe David should try it out sometime because it is really freeing and body positivity is really awesome. So just wanted to follow up and give that information. You guys are doing great. Love your show. And well, I will be back to continue to listen. Woo.
Okay, so let me
first of all, can I just say yes. I love you, Cameron?
And yes, it was amazing.
I wanted to be it. If it's a bunch of hot gay guys in Speedos, I'll be there.
So I did not know that. It makes total sense. And to be clear, I just want to be really clear. There was no body shaming here. Like I just felt behind the times. Actually, I felt old. Like, did the styles change? And did I not know this? Right? I didn't. Like I felt like an old man. Like I felt like, oh, I'm already like a 50-year-old dad who's like not that cool at all, and now I'm like now I look like I'm like 100 years old compared to everybody there because I think I missed the style change. So that said, I don't think I'm ever getting into a Speedo. I wish I had that kind of body positivity. Like I'm genuinely envious of people who have that kind of body positivity. I totally see that, but like I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can.
I have to say, I heard this and I was like, well, mark my calendar for next year because you know what? If I get to be at a Waterworld full of queer people for one day, that sounds like my perfect day at Waterworld. And it made me think, though, I worked at a summer camp in high school in the 90s, and they had a gay day at Elitch's and I think an unofficial one at Waterworld. And that's when we would go with our kids because it was just less busy. and everybody was really nice. But it kind of makes me happy to think like maybe it's actually now busier than it was in the 90s post Pride, which makes me happy to see folks continuing the celebration at where else but Waterworld. But
Well,
I
so
feel
that-
you.
that is
I'm
my-
wearing
that
a,
is-
I'm wearing a muumuu or a caftan. I feel you.
I do want to amend then my point of that I made when we talked about Waterworld originally, because it's possible when I said, Waterworld, one of the things that makes it not such a great place is that the lines are so insane.
Yes.
It's possible that I kind of accidentally went on a day in which the lines were going to be particularly bad. I presumed that going on a Monday was the kind of way to avoid some of that, but maybe
Sure.
I picked the exact wrong Monday. So I am actually amending my statement, and I have told my daughter I am willing to go back to Waterworld on a day in which I try to really do some due diligence and make sure that it isn't some kind of special day
Sure.
where there's like a huge crowd. Because maybe on a regular, like a Wednesday in the summer, it's like not that crowded. I don't know.
I would say later in July, early August, everybody's still on vacation. People are taking their vacations before kids go back to school. Maybe a Wednesday at the end of July is a good bet.
Okay,
But,
great. I'm
try
gonna,
it,
I'm gonna
and
try it.
I'm gonna hold you to it, and I'm gonna see if you did this.
But, and I will have a
summer
Speedo
season.
report for you.
Okay.
I will have a Speedo report on whether on the style of bathing suits that are there.
Thank you so much, David. Well, thanks for joining me. This was really fun.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell a guy in a Speedo at Waterworld about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe to our morning newsletter at denver.citycast.fm. And hey, thank you so much to our new neighbor, Aaron W., who just joined our membership program. You can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye.